Hello everyone, and welcome back to Aero League Racing. My name's Aman, and you are joining me here at Mexico. However, it is a bit different this time around. I do have a very special guest with me. It is in the form of Bloodwave, the Tier 1 driver. How are you, Bloodwave? Welcome to the stream.
Thank you. I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. Obviously, we've got a very exciting race in store for you all, and we should be getting underway very shortly as well. So just a little bit longer now, and as we wait for the rest of the drivers to ready up and O'Leary to give us the go-ahead, we will be getting underway. Hello, Saeed. It's great to see you as always.
Hi, Saeed. Yes, my fellow brownie. What's up, my man?
It's always exciting to see you tune in as always. You're such a reliable viewer of ours. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, he's always here. He's a good chap.
Right, and ladies and gentlemen, as O'Leary gives us the go-ahead, we are all set to get underway here at Mexico for round 6. It has been a very dominant championship so far. I will quickly go over these standings as we get all set to go here today. So, going over the standings really quickly, Groen in the Ferrari leading your championship with 87 points. Vitor in P2 in the AlphaTauri sitting with 52. Luke in the Alfa Romeo sitting with 50 points, and CRF and Benny following very closely after with 43 and 40 points respectively, and that will round off your top 5. The top 10 will consist of, the rest of the top 10 consists of Pointers, MBMA, Parker, Mini Turns, and Owen. So obviously we have Groen dominating the championship so far. We've seen him absolutely dominate and get on every single podium so far, as a matter of fact. Obviously struggling with penalties and steward submissions after at China. However, that was to be expected after the chaotic race we had there. Looking at the constructor standings, Ferrari sit at the top of the table with 130 points. AlphaTauri sit up top with in P2 with 94 points. Williams with 62, followed by Alfa Romeo, McLaren, Alpine, Haas, Red Bull, Aston Martin, and Mercedes. But going back to the race at hand, Bloodwave, obviously Mexico, a track that you raced on with Tier 1, raced being
the key word there.
Keyword.
I kind of just drove at the back on my own and then spun it into a wall. But, that was my choice. I felt like doing that. There was no other reason. It was not a skill issue or anything. I wanted to crash into the wall, which is exactly what I did, because I do what I want.
Honestly, it's only fair that you give everybody else in Tier 1 a fair chance, otherwise
exactly.
nobody would be having fun.
The thing is, right, if I start dominating every race, right, which everybody knows that I can do if I want, it's not going to be fun for anybody, right? Because I am esports ready. I'm the best driver in the world. But enough about me. Let's look at Parker now.
So obviously, with your experience that you've had here on this track so far, I would be definitely looking onto some insights. So tell me about your car setup over here. Is it a more high downforce setup? Would you like to go for? Would you go for a more top speed setup? What is the key in finding the right balance around a track like this?
So obviously, at a track like Mexico, you have that Sector 2, which has the S's in it. A lot of downforce required there, otherwise you're going to find yourself, especially with worn tires, you're going to have a lot of trouble at that particular section. You need a lot of downforce to kind of hook the car up over there, but other than that, we have, I believe, the longest straight on the calendar, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is second, followed by Abu Dhabi. So you need a bit of top speed as well. So finding that balance is pretty tricky, but I would say around 20 front wing to like 16 rear wing, around about, should be more than enough for these drivers to hook up a nice lap.
Right, well, speaking of nice laps, we can see right now Parker is about to begin the first time lap of this session. We will ride on board with him, as since we do have an experienced driver, he will be giving us a bit of insight as to how drivers will be wanting to approach the corners. So, Blood, please take it away from here.
Right, so exiting the final corner, 5th gear normally for stability. He's going to DRS open right about now, 8th gear. As you can see, there's a Mercedes, I believe, or an Alfa Romeo exiting the pit exit. But into turn 1, speeds of above 330 kph, down into 3rd gear, gets the rotation nicely for the first corner and 2nd for the other 2. Now, important that he gets a good exit over here, which he seems to have gotten. DRS open once again, 8th gear into turn 4, I believe, with entry speeds of about 310, gets the apex nicely, tough one that, into the double right-hander, kind of skips over the curbs a little bit. And now he's into the right-hander, into sector 2. Decent sector 1 time from him, but hopefully he can improve on that just a little bit now. Down to 5th gear for this next corner and into the trickiest part of the track. For me, tough to invalidate over here as well. 6th gear on the exit. Looks like he got that hooked up relatively nicely. DRS flat open once again as he heads into the stadium section. Down into 3rd gear, misses the apex just a bit, and now the slowest corner on the track, down into 2nd gear. Keeps it in 2nd for the next, 3rd and 4th maybe? No, keeps it in 2nd actually for this exit, which is a bit risky. Hugs it close to the right and sets a time of 118.5. Not a bad lap.
Not a bad lap at all, as now we can see that the following cars following right behind him is Trends. He does come across the line. What time will he set? Actually, he's beginning his first lap time over here. We'll go back down to the AlphaTauris. Vitor, Mighty Chump actually coming across to the line, sets a 120.5. We'll ride on board with Vitor as he comes across the line, actually coming across the final corner. What time can he set? Sets a 117.8, so going almost roughly, oh wow, my maths is completely all over the place. As Admiral completely out of nowhere sets a 118.1, followed by Luke with a 117.9. Now, Blood, obviously it's a very, very long run down into turn 1. Would it be maybe strategically better to maybe look for a P2 position in qualifying, maybe to get into the DRS, getting into the slipstream of the car ahead of you, or would you rather just go for P1 and hope that you have enough straight line speed to absolutely gun it into the first corner?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the tire compounds that you start the race on. So if you're obviously starting on the harder tire compounds, then you're going to have a lot more trouble getting traction off the line, as Pasty gets very close to the wall there, and then he goes into the pits. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but nevertheless, that is the choice he has to live with now, and he's been in the pits as well. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, turn 1 at Mexico, you start so far back at the straight that the slipstream is very important to try and get yourself up into P1. Starting P1, maybe not the best decision at this track over here. I'd say P3 probably is the best, because you're starting on the clean side of the grid and you have a slipstream from 2 cars in front. Albeit you will have to do a lot of maneuvering to get past those cars, but if you can pull it off, then it is the highest risk and highest reward starting position for you at this track.
And that's fair enough, as we now ride on board with Mini Turns. Obviously, a very new debuting driver here, has made only 2 appearances so far, and very dominant appearances, winning the last race at China. Obviously, last race at China we had a merge with Tier 2, so he may not have finished in the top 3 of the actual grid, but he did finish in the top 3. He did finish number 1, as a matter of fact, out of all the other Tier 3 drivers, so that did award him the race win last time we were out on the race weekend. But now, riding on board with Mini Turns, as he's at a very dominant lap, coming across the first sector, does manage to set a purple sector 1. We'll have to see if he can keep it relatively clean for the rest of the lap. Obviously, provisional pole right now being a 117.319, with MBMA sitting in P2 with a 117.323. Roughly only, not even, I wouldn't even say roughly 5 thousandths behind the Naked Champ at this current stage, but Mini Turns showing that he has definitely the pace to keep up with the front runners, has set a purple sector 1. Will he be setting a purple sector 2? No, he will not. So definitely won't be too happy about that. We'll see if he manages to keep it clean for the rest of the lap. We could be looking at a very, very high time here.
Yeah, probably many turns running a bit lower downforce considering he set the fastest sector run, but then was not the fastest in the second sector, so that shows that he might have a tad more straight line speed.
And speaking of speed, we can see CRF completely out of nowhere being one of the first drivers to enter the 116s with a time of a 116.7. So of course he must be very, very pleased with himself there. We'll see who's next about to make a run. We can see Parker and Admo on their outlaps at this current stage. Hello Reaper, great to see you. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. But going back to the action at hand, I believe Pasty will be the first driver to come across the line and begin their time lapse after a bunch of drivers came in and made their first two timed runs. So, obviously we've seen Groen in the Ferraris of CRF and Groen absolutely dominate this season. It'll be great to see if they can compete, if the rest of the grid can compete with them. Obviously, Blood, as a driver who would be struggling to catch up to the championship leader, what kind of mindset is important to have here?
Speaking from experience, the kind of mindset that you want to have when you're trailing in a championship is that you go into every race thinking that you have nothing to lose. Because when you start taking the pressure of having to focus too much on wins, then you tend to bottle it or get more nervous towards the later stages of the race. So if you have that kind of feeling that you have nothing to lose and you're just in it for the fight because you're in the back foot anyway, that way you go into the race without any pressure, with less pressure that you put on yourself. So that's one thing I would have changed about myself back when I was fighting, or while trying to fight for the championship. So yeah, that's what I would say. Just consider yourself to be the unlikely candidate, and that way you'll perform better. It's like magic. Every time you just do better when you think that you will do good.
You see Saeed commenting that the two GOATs not racing today, both Reaper and Ross. Yes, unfortunately, we will not have either driver racing today. As we can see, a Ferrari completely spun the opposite way. There is a yellow flag in Sector 2. That was definitely him, but we were right on board with Admiral for the rest of the lap, currently sitting in P9 with a 118.1. As he comes across Sector 2, let's see if he has improved on his time so far. He has not, almost at 7/10 down as a matter of fact on his current lap time, so nothing exciting from him just as of yet. We can see MBMA on the other hand has set a purple Sector 1. MBMA is currently ahead of the Naked Champ. Hello Jack, yes, both me and Blood are on co-coms at this current.
Hello Jack.
But going...
Jack once told me that we both sound the same, so I'm trying to sound a little bit different from you so that people can actually tell who the fuck we are.
Yeah, it's not like we aren't related or anything.
Did he win it?
No, not as yet. As we can see, he's actually keeping a very nice lap time so far. Currently sitting P3 with a 117.3, massively off time from CRF, but he will be looking to close the gap on this occasion. Comes across the final turn up this corner. What will happen as MBMA completely spins it, and MBMA has come true.
Oh no, that's the curse.
The curse, and we can see the Naked Champ has also invalidated his lap time. We see Parker has invalidated his. Pointers is currently 2/10 up on his time, but he is still pretty far back on this occasion. Vitor, on the other hand, currently sitting P8, 2/10 up on his time. Won't be lighting the timing sheets up too much, but...
Yeah, he got a bit rough in the stadium section. That was much of an improvement here, unless he can pull something out.
Sits a 117.5, so does manage to promote himself up into P5 at this current moment. Trend's massively slower on his lap time as Parker has beef with the little cone outside the pit lane entry. You can see Pointers currently on... No, definitely not on a flyer at this current stage. Luke, on the other hand, is coming through the stadium section. He is roughly 2/10 up. He is and has set a time of 117.9.
Kept it tidy through there as well. We might be looking at a good improvement from him if he can keep it together.
And he does.
Has P4
for the 117.3
improvement. That's not bad from Luke.
Yeah, Luke absolutely set a rapid time so far, so big congrats to him. We do have a Williams that is now coming into the pits. O'Leary, on the other hand, massively slow on his time as well. Pasty seems to be on a flyer, but I do want to look around and see if there's anybody else. So Vitor, obviously going massively slow, has invalidated his lap time. Pasty on his run. We'll see if he can keep it clean through this section. Obviously the S section is the easiest place to lose the car. He is going very, very slowly, as a matter of fact. I think he might actually be out of fuel. Well, very unfortunate there. O'Leary currently 6/10 down on his time. Won't be setting any rapid times at this current stage. Tichy has begun his lap time here at Mexico. He is on 25% ERS. I'm not too sure if that will be enough. Actually, no, he's going very, very slowly. He's also probably on an in-lap at this current moment. So with that, your provisional pole sitter for this race so far is CRF, the naked champ in the Mercedes sitting in P2. MBMA spinning out, but still currently sitting in P3. Surprisingly, Groen actually DNFing?
Yeah, we missed that. Groen has actually DNF'd, so he will not be setting a lap time in this session, starting from the back of the grid. What's that going to do for his championship fight?
Obviously, he does have a massive championship lead, but with how fast some of these drivers have been in the form of the Naked Champ, CRF, Mini Turns, Vitor, all these drivers, it'll be interesting to see if they can close the gap a decent amount to the championship leader. You can see Mini Turns has now begun his first time lap. So we're right on board with him, currently a 1:17.4 sitting in P5 at this moment.
Right, so back into Sector 2, he's going to downshift to 5th for this one, keep it nice and tight over the curbs, 6th gear, wants to keep it in 6th as there's a slight lift over here and gets a good exit, stays away from the track limits, a little bit safe on track limits, matter of fact, as he does set a purple Sector 2, quickest of the session of course, into the stadium section, 5th gear over here and downshifts now to 2nd, gets good rotation, over the curve now into 3rd gear as he approaches the second last and the last corner. 3rd gear on the exit, keeps it nice and tight towards the inside and sets a lap time good enough for P2, a 1:16.923 for Mini Turns. That's a good effort from him.
So Mini Turns obviously being the second driver of this session to enter the 1:16s. Obviously still a bit off of CRF's current time, but we can see that as track conditions progress, and as your tires begin to warm up and they begin to stick to the track better, times will be slowly getting faster and faster. So that was a great run by the Mini Turns, as we can go right on board with MBMA, who seems to be currently 2/10 up on his time. He is experiencing quite a heavy bit of traffic. Oh, and there's a bit of contact there between him and the AlphaTauri there. The AlphaTauri not doing a fantastic job of getting out of the way, and MBMA deciding to just come into the pits instead.
Yeah, that was not exactly what you want to see from anybody here. I believe that was the Mighty Chump, maybe, who got in the way of MBMA. Yeah, that's
definitely the Mighty Chump there. We've seen Mighty Chump obviously get involved in a few incidents so far. Noob Squid on his current time is roughly 2/10 up, and currently sitting P14, way off the pace at the moment with a 1:20.0, so he will definitely be looking to improve. Has set a purple sector too, as a matter of fact.
1 second up on his lap time, that's very decent now.
So Noof definitely trying to show that he is also in contention for one of the higher grid slots at Mexico today. Reaper with another report registered. Yeah, no, he should have definitely gotten out of the way. 100% invalidated his lap time, but as Noob comes across the line, he sets a 1:18.9, so still currently P14 with no major improvements on his grid position. CRF, on the other hand, your current provisional pole position leader, is right now on his on his time lap. Has gone through the S sections as he comes across sector 2 and goes wide and invalidates his lap time. So he will not be improving on this occasion. Vitor, on the other hand, roughly 300s down on his time and has pulled off to the track because he's invalidated too.
Where is Matt? Matt does not race in Tier 3, my friend. He races in Tier 4 and comms for Tier 2.
Yeah, he's not available today. I don't think so.
Yeah, you guys should have called me in for T2 comms. Yes, I will keep you in mind for that. You can ask Reaper and talk to the admins, and they'll probably give you a definitive answer about that.
Right, as we ride on board with Parker, who is going very, very slowly through that stadium section over there. I don't think he's going to be improving anytime soon either, so no big improvements from him. Meanwhile, Pasty, roughly 600s up on his current time, is sitting in P9 with a 1:17.8. Yeah, Blood, you want to maybe respond to Reaper regarding?
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm not the person to ask about who does comms and who doesn't do comms. It's probably, I told Said that he would be better off asking Reaper, one of the admins, about comms. That's not my place to say.
going on board with the Aston Martin of Tichy Boom. He is currently, actually invalidated his lap time. So a bunch of drivers actually struggling to keep the car on the track at the moment. Is this something that you struggled with, Blood, and specifically through the S section? Because that's where I imagine drivers are most likely losing their car the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, even on the best of days, especially with tire wear and everything. It's never really easy, as we have yellow flags in Sector 3. I believe that is the Aston Martin of Tichy.
And with it, actually, sorry to cut you off there, Blood, but with only a minute left to go, CRF and Mini both in the pits at this current moment, so they will definitely not be making another run for the final lap of this race. So at this current moment, CRF and Mini feeling that their times are good enough to secure P1 and P2 respectively. We'll see if that will stand. Vitor coming across the line. What time will he set? Sets a 1:17.2.
Close one though.
Yeah, it manages to come into P3. We can see the Naked Champ currently on his out lap. We'll keep an eye on him to see if he can make it to the words of the line. MBMA begins his time lap. Luke begins his time lap. We can see Trems currently almost 2/10 up on his time. He is in P8 at the moment with a 1:17.5. Assuming he can gain enough time through the S section, we might be looking at him taking pole position away from CRF, even though it may be more than unlikely.
Yeah, as he heads through the stadium section, he'll be looking for a good improvement through here as long as he can keep it neat and tidy. Wants to stay as far right as he can to minimize the distance traveled to the line, which he does very nicely. Sets a lap time of a 1:16.9, puts himself ahead of mini turns and into P2. And with that, the checkered flag has fallen, so you won't be looking at any improvements from the likes of CRF and mini turns, and Trems for that matter. MBMA now as well. Heading into the stadium section, down into third gear, wants to keep it nice and tidy. He's not a bad shout for pole, you know. He's been looking pretty rapid so far in this session. If he can just hook this last corner up nicely, and as he approaches the line, a 1:17.2, not bad from him.
Oh, and as we ride on board with the Naked Champ, and that was a very, very rough crash there for that driver. Hopefully he can come out of the car completely unscathed and his thumbs don't hurt. Regardless, it doesn't seem like any other driver is really going to be making a run for pole position at this current moment, as most of the drivers have now decided to come into the pits or are basically on their in laps. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, as qualifying comes to an end, your top 5 are CRF, Trems, Miniturn, MVMA, and Vitor. CRF obviously taking pole position with a 1:16.7, and Trems with sitting in P2, very closely behind with a 1:16.9.
Right, so
I think we're in store for what is going to be a very, very nice race today.
Yeah, that was a good quality session. There's some dark clouds.
Yeah, speaking of which, if anybody has any idea regarding the weather forecast for this race, it'd be great to have an update regarding that. I know Tier 3 is cursed to have rain every single race.
Yeah.
So someone can give me some insight regarding that. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Apparently, according to say, Tier 4 is cursed too, but I doubt it's cursed as much as Tier 3. Tier 3 has had rain every single race. I think other than Australia, there's been rain every single place.
Yeah, but MB, I mean, Rigo is saying that MB told him that it's a dry race coming up, so yeah, maybe it's finally time that the curse is broken, unless we see a surprise of rain towards the end, which has been known to happen, saying.
There are dark clouds in the vicinity, so there's no promising anything over here. But looking at the grid so far, CRF manages to get pole position today. Trems in P2, Mini Turns in P3, and MBMA and Vitor in P5, and that will round off your top 5 here at Mexico. So, like you were saying, P3 being the optimal position to be in, this is a great chance for Mini Turns for maybe to actually catch up to P1 and P2 and overtake them going into turn 1.
Yeah, provided that he's running low enough wings and actually utilizes his slipstream for long enough, because if he pulls out alongside too early, then he's not going to be getting the benefit of the slipstream, and he's going to have to burn a lot of ERS, and that might leave him vulnerable to people behind. It's a big chess game into turn 1, especially in Mexico, considering the track is so wide and you can have so many cars, like 4 or 5 cars next to each other into turn 1. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see how he copes with that.
And we all know the Grandmaster of Chess in Tier 3 is the Mighty Chump. We'll be looking forward to seeing how he makes up tons of positions, of course, unless he's planning on spinning out once again. Regardless, just 20 seconds left and we'll be getting underway with the formation lap, which will be led by CRF. Groen, obviously our championship leader, starting at the end, at the back of the grid. Won't be too happy about that. Obviously, spinning out in qualifying is not great for your morale either, so we'll see if he can keep his head strong, and if he can keep his head up, we might be looking at, once again, another Groen podium.
Considering how quick Groen is in this tier, it's going to be a really interesting thing to see him fight through the grid, possibly end up in the points, or maybe even bag himself a podium or a win. You never know with these drivers, especially a driver of the caliber of Groen. And so yeah, top two starting on the mediums, Mini is starting on the hards, which is an interesting choice considering he's not going to have the same traction off the line of the drivers around him, so maybe losing some positions at the start, hopefully not, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Not to my knowledge, I don't believe Groen had a qualifying ban. I believe he just spun out and went into the wall and unfortunately lost his tire and DNF'd, which is why he's starting from the back of the grid. But going back to the tire compounds, we can see that the top 5 runners opting to more use the medium tires for their race, whereas the bottom 10 or the bottom 6 more opting to use the hard tires. So multiple strategies coming into play today. We'll have to see which one is obviously going to be the most beneficial.
Yep.
Caesar noob. How are you, Caesar? It's great to see you.
Hello, Caesar. And he's gone.
And he's gone.
Wrong stream? Question mark. Hope he has a good race. So yeah, I just figured to let you know Robin as well is racing in Tier 2.
Really?
Yeah, he is. They had a bit of a driver issue. I think like there was not a lot of drivers, so he was called in, or maybe he just permanently moved them.
The super sub.
Sure. Yeah, the super sub. Literally, I had to get the numbers up, but yeah.
Well, we do wish Robin a great luck for his Tier 2 race, but right now we will be focused on our Tier 3 race as CRF comes and lines up and the rest of the grid follows suit. He has created a bit of a gap to the final driver. Will be standing still and maybe losing a bit of tire temperatures with his car for a little while. You can see the rest of the grid also beginning to line up. This may not be the optimal camera angle for this, however we will make do with what we have. And we can see now, Groen now coming to the final grid slot, and we are all set to get underway. It's been a while since we've come to Mexico, and it's been an interesting qualifying with us so far. We've got a few red lights on the board as of now. There's 5 red lights. It's lights out and away we go here at the Mexican Grand Prix. CRF manages to get a very nice run. However, Trez manages to get an even better run. He does manage to overtake CRF into the first corner. Mini turns going side by side with Vitor at this current moment. Both the AlphaTauri and the Haas going side by side. Vitor does manage to get past Mini turns at this current moment. However, Mini turns fighting right back as there's a bunch of collisions with a bunch of the drivers. CRF dropping down from P1 all the way down into P5. Never mind P6. As we look down the rest of the grid, a few of the drivers not coming together. There seems to be 3 wide going into this one corner and going into the next section.
Pointer's trying to make the move on the naked champ. He's down the inside, doesn't really make the apex and gets squeezed out. And now Abmo's going to have a look down the inside as they do make contact, and Abmo gets all out of shape there. Pointer is able to hold on to his position there as Abmo is now in a fight with Parker heading down into the next left-hander, and he manages to stay ahead as Groen gets past Parker already up to P11 off of the start, and call that P10 as CRF is off.
And your race leader who qualified here in pole position has gone massively off and is now in P15. Groen, who started dead last and is your championship leader, has managed to push himself up into P10. And we have a virtual safety car here in the first lap of the Mexican Grand Prix. So already a ton of chaos has taken place. And with this VSC, we can get a quick chance to review the current positioning at this current moment. So Trems sitting in P1, Mini Turns in P2, and Luke in P3. Both the Alfa Romeos managing to get 2 stats on the podium. As we can see, MBMA has gone into the pits for a possible wing change, along with CRF.
Right, so an interesting first lap at the least as we go back under racing as they're gonna go three wide into turn 1 as it looks like Pointers is going to come out on top over here, and no, he's not.
Pasty going side by side with Pointers at this current moment. We can ride on board with Ammo to get a better camera angle at this. They're not overtaking each other. They're both approaching the Aston Martin. About to go 3 wide into this corner. Think better of it. They're still side by side as there's a bit of wheel banging between these drivers. Ammo trying to find the right gap, trying to squeeze through. Does come into a bit of contact with the rear tire of Pointers. Luckily, no puncture there. And with that chaos, we can see Pasty has now managed to move himself up into P7. And we can see Luke in the Alfa Romeo, who's currently sitting in P3, does spin out, and that promotes Vitor and the Naked Champ up, and along with FX and Parker, up a position. So with that, Vitor now currently sitting in P3.
Whoa.
There seems to be a ton of action on every single lap. We can see Luke not able to hold Pasty behind him. Thought about maybe making dive on the inside, but thought better of it on this occasion. So with that, Luke now currently sitting in P7. Mini turns and Vitor set the fastest laps of this race so far.
Yeah, growing up to P10 already and following close behind Abno. Is he going to be able to make a run down into turn 1? It looks like it, you know. He's got the better traction and the greater straight line speed as he's gaining all the time. Pulls out of the slipstream of the McLaren in front. Going side by side, the medium versus the hard tires. The medium tires obviously with the superior grip. Tries to make a lunge down the inside and does so. Skips over the curb, leaves a lot of space for the McLaren, and the job is done. Moves himself up into P9. Great move by him.
So with that, Groen now currently sitting in P9, has managed to secure 2 points in the standings so far. We'll have to see if he can make any more progress throughout this entire race. As we go back to the front of the grid, we can see Vitor trying to catch up to the mini turns right now. Thought about going side by side with him through the S section. Thought better of it. There's obviously no room for both drivers to go through such a fast section together. However, we can see Vitor keeping up with Mini. He does manage to go a bit off track and does lose the car a slight bit, so he will lose a bit of time. Obviously, we're in lap 3 at this current stage, so DRS will be enabled.
So yeah, he's not able to get past from that DRS straight, but now into the long pit straight, maybe trying to make a move. As you can see, Pointers gets overtaken by Groen. That superior straight line speed comes into handy once again, and Groen moves himself up into P8, so that's 4 championship points for him. He's on a charge to the field right
Groen absolutely not wasting any time. As we can see, Vitor now pulls around to the outside. Does manage to get the move done before the corner even begins, but you know Mini Turns is not going to let this move just go just as yet. Obviously, the 2 DRS zones at the start of this race only have 1 detection point, so into the next DRS zone, Vitor will once again have DRS, which will be very, very damaging to Mini. However, if Mini can drain all his battery, he can maybe fight this position back. Does not get anything done as yet. We can see Parker now all of a sudden trying to make a move on the Naked Champ. Parker obviously does have a penalty. However, going to the next corner, he tries to fight around the outside. Can't make the move stick. He's still around the outside, and all of a sudden these drivers are still side by side through these corners. We can see Pasty trying to get all involved into the next corner as well. However, still, and with that positioning, Parker does manage to promote himself up a position, and now he's sitting in P4.
Great racing by those pair, I'll tell you. He chose the outside line so he would have the inside for the next couple of corners. That's very smart by Parker. Moves himself up into P4, a solid 9 seconds behind the front 3. As we can see, Pasty trying to make a move on the Naked Champ. Thinks about it, but thinks about it after.
Going down a bit of the grid, we can see Groen now very, very close behind this DRS train that is beginning to form. He is obviously trying to make up as many positions as possible. Luke ahead of him on the medium tires. So it'll all be about pace and driver skill into this next corner. We'll have to see how Groen can handle this situation. Does have his DRS wide open, but so does Luke. It doesn't look like it'll be enough on this occasion. Going up the grid, we can see Pasty all of a sudden getting very, very close to the Naked Champ. Looks towards the inside line. Thinks about making a move, but thinks better of it. Does not do anything as of yet. We'll try to get a better exit out of this next corner to maybe make a run towards the Mercedes. However, with that, it looks like the Naked Champ actually made the best run out of there with more traction.
So yeah, Pasty not able to get past on this occasion.
Definitely.
Abmo now trying to move on Pointers as he does get it done. Up into P9 he goes. Pointers struggling a little bit on those hard tires. Abmo liking them a little bit better. Manages to get the position off of Pointers.
That is true. Reaper is saying that this is Pasty's first race and he's already up to 6. So we already have a bunch of debuters making a very, very impactful first impression here. Obviously, we've seen drivers like Mini Turns, drivers like Pasty now making brilliant moves as Groen all of a sudden goes up massively, goes up another position. That's because Luke spun out once again. So Luke has spun out once again. The Alfa Romeo of Luke definitely not finding the right amount of grip. And we've got a full safety car here.
So lap 5, we have a full safety car. Luke, the culprit who causes the safety car, spun out, probably lost his wing or something. This is going to be very good for Groen because I tell you, he was pretty far off the lead before this safety car came out. Obviously, he had really good pace, but it still would have been a job and a half to try and catch up to the likes of Trems and Vitor as well as Mini. But this is going to give him a good opportunity to try and close that gap up a little bit more because if he gets a good safety car restart, he might be looking at some pretty decent points.
Obviously, this is also great for a few of the medium runners who will be looking to save their tire strength as well. Obviously, under the safety car, the drivers don't have to drive nearly as fast, and if they can keep their tire temperatures up, they will save a lot of tire grip in their tires, not to mention recovery of batteries. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now lap 6, and we have a full-fledged safety car out. Your current top 3 are Trems, Vitor, and Mini Turns. Parker in P4 does have a penalty. I believe it's only 3 seconds, though. As I'll take a quick look. Yep, it's only a 3-second penalty. However, with the Naked Champion Pasty following very, very closely behind him, we'll have to see if he can make a bit of a gap.
So yeah, safety car lap 6 now. I believe it should stay out for a couple more laps, provided Luke and CRF can catch up, which I'm sure they will. They're not exactly slow drivers.
No, absolutely not. Plus, not to mention that obviously no DNF so far in this current session. So drivers, even though there's been a few incidents and a few spins, we've had one VSC and one safety car so far. However, they did manage to keep it relatively clean, no DNFs. Wing changes have definitely taken place, as we saw MBMA pitting after the first lap after what was a great qualifying from him. However, we've seen it time and time again where he just manages to attract tons of incidents to himself.
Yeah, MB, not the luckiest driver in the tier, I'll tell you that. Definitely one of the quickest, though, on his day. Which this seems to be, despite his spin and everything, he seems to have pretty good, pretty solid pace, so hopefully he'll be looking to make some positions up on the grid.
So Trems now leaves the rest of the grid right behind the safety car. Once the safety car restart does happen, we will obviously get the update from race control when the safety car will be coming in. And once that happens, it is up to Trems to bunch up the rest of the pack and then choose to go at his own convenience. His goal will obviously be trying to catch out the rest of the grid, specifically P2. There will be no overtaking until Trems crosses the black and white flag, so drivers will have to be careful that they don't go too soon. And we can see it, Vitor actually kind of hanging a bit back there. CRF being the only driver at this current stage who has to catch up to the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's quite a ways away, so I don't think we'll be looking at safety car in this lap. Probably going to stay out for another lap, which is not the worst thing. If anybody's under-fueled, it gives them time to recover some of their fuel, maybe some of their ERS. Medium runners will be liking this a lot, actually, because they get to save their tires pretty nicely, provided they're not weaving around a bunch.
When is the expected pit window here? When do you expect the drivers will be looking to pit? And will they be more looking for an undercut, an overcut? What would be your strategy going into this race at this current moment?
So, from my experience in Mexico, tire drop-off is extreme, but the loss in grip is not as bad as people might expect. So, I would say if you're on the mediums, you would want to try and go on those tires as long as possible so you can have fresher tires to combat the hard runners towards the end. Provided that you are not prone to mistakes and you can manage to keep the car on track without getting penalties or spinning out or all of that stuff. The overcut at this track, in my experience at least, is definitely a lot more powerful than the undercut.
So drivers will definitely be looking to stay out more, which will greatly help these medium runners. And as CRF catches up to the back of the grid, we believe that this may possibly be the final lap behind the safety car as once we come through Sector 2. As we come through the end of Sector 2, Race Control will give us the update. Regardless, a few people to keep an eye on for sure. Mini Turns, your last race winner here, sitting in P3, growing your championship leader in P7. We've seen Pasty, the new debuter, currently sitting in P6. So a whole bunch of drivers to keep an eye on. Trems, obviously a very fast driver, currently sitting in P1. Vitor, a current an ex-champion in ALR, also sitting in P2 at this current stage.
So yeah, safety car in this lap.
And as the safety car comes in this lap, it is all up to Trems to bunch up the rest of the field. As we can see, a bunch of the drivers trying to weave back and forth, keeping tire temperatures in their cars. As he comes through the castle section, we'll ride on board for Trems on this occasion to see when he decides to go. And as we can see right behind him, all these drivers ready to pounce on the first mistake that they see. It will be all up to Trems to make sure he doesn't go too soon, but not too late either. And as the stadium section finishes and he approaches the final turn, we will keep an eye on him and see when he decides to catch the rest of the grid off guard. He still hasn't gone just as yet, still choosing to warm up his tires. Maybe pushing it to the last possible second, and with that, Trems has now finally decided to go. Has managed to catch Vitor just slightly off guard. However, Mini is completely on it. Following Vitor very, very closely behind. As we look at the back of the grid, we can see a bunch of drivers. No massive overtakes just as of yet. Mini Turns does decide to go a bit defensive into that corner. We can see a few overtakes at the end of the grid as MBMA makes a move on Luke, on the Mighty Chump, and Luke all of a sudden makes a move on the Mighty Chump too.
Yeah, Mighty Chump not having the best of restarts on those hard tires. He lost a couple of positions there to the likes of Luke and MBMA. As we can see, Pasty trying to have a look down the inside of the Naked Champ. Does not get it done on this occasion, almost pushing the Naked Champ around the track. And he's not able to get past on this occasion.
Almost trying to push the Naked Champ around. However, we can see in the back, Admo managing to get past Groen. So Admo managing to overtake your championship leader and promoting himself up into P7. Seemingly completely out of nowhere. It seemed like Groen had his position covered, but completely out of nowhere, Admo does manage to make the move. We can see near the end of the grid, O'Leary seems to have gone completely wide there, which allowed Tichy to go through too. Oh, as Groen has gone massively off the track there, maybe missed his braking point completely, and now with that, Pointers has now gone through. So in the span of a few corners, Groen has dropped down significant amounts of positions as Parker picks up his second time penalty for this race.
Yeah, Groen not really liking his tires at the moment. It seems he's going to try and maybe get the move back past Pointers. He does have the supreme straight line speed, as we know, but it depends on how much battery he's willing to expend on this move. Does not look like he's going to be close enough into turn 1, and he isn't. Does not get the move done. Loses a bit of time on this straight, so maybe Pointers deploying a lot of battery there. But yeah, Groen is really not going to like being stuck behind these cars now, because through his own faults, he's lost a couple of positions, and yeah, that's going to hurt his fight back in this race.
So Groen obviously was hoping to use the safety car to his advantage. However, nothing doing yet. We can see Mini Turns currently within a second of Vitor. Parker within a second of Mini Turns. So everything to fight for in this bottom step of the podium. We see a few gaps now beginning to form. Admo currently 4/10 behind Pasty. Has pushed himself up very, very nicely with his McLaren. We'll keep an eye on him to see if he can make any more moves. We can see Vitor getting very, very close behind Trems. And all of a sudden, without Groen leading this race, it feels like the grid is just also bunched up together. CRF getting past Nuke Squid as well.
Yeah, obviously these drivers will be looking to pull out that 1 second gap to the cars behind before DRS is enabled, as it is on this lap. Looks like Trems is not able to do that, but he has until the end of Sector 2 to try and pull a gap. Nobody wants the car behind them to have DRS. As you can see, Groen now really close behind Pointers. No DRS on this occasion, as it will be enabled towards the end of the lap. Trying to make a move down the inside as Pointers is out of battery, and Groen is going to do it. Down the inside, keeps it nice and tight, and then round the outside for the second corner. And he promotes himself up into P8 as he gets on the outside curb and a bit squirrely. That might allow Pointers to fight back, but he doesn't. Groen has the move done and dusted. Up into P8 he goes.
It seems Groen is massively struggling with the tire compounds that he has. Maybe his mediums have suffered a lot more damage than we may anticipate, and he might have been a bit too rough on those. Regardless, we're right on board with the Naked Champ, who is currently 6 tenths behind, or well, I should say 5 tenths behind Parker. Parker obviously sitting with a 6-second time penalty, and unless he can create a massive gap to the cars behind, he will be dropping down a considerable amount of positions.
Yeah, Naked Champ has DRS on the car in front, so he'll be looking to hold on through this last sector. Doesn't want to drop out of DRS. We can see is there a bit of a train forming, or is there not, as MBMA is getting pretty close behind to Joe Larry. He's going to try it around the outside in the stadium section, gets the move done. That is a very good move from MBMA as he gets past Joe Larry.
And now, because of that, Joe Larry seems to have gone completely out of shape there, as all of a sudden CRF, seemingly out of nowhere, manages to make the move on O'Leary as well. So now the Ferrari getting past the Red Bull.
Yeah, Joe Larry's having a bit of a nightmare there.
And all of a sudden, Abmo now currently fighting with Pasty. Abmo not just done just yet. He has pushed himself up into P7, is now looking up for more positions, is currently behind P6 of Pasty. Pasty goes completely defensive. Abmo completely following behind, trying to get the slipstream. Thinks about diving down the inside, but thinks better of it.
Yeah, not enough on this occasion, but he's going to be really close into the S section. If he can hug the back of that Haas car, he might be able to have a run down into the stadium section, you know. As
it is
obviously.
obviously.
Luke gets past Mighty Chump.
Oh, and his Trems is completely DNF'd.
Trems has spun it in the S's, and we have a safety car.
And your race leader, Trems, has completely spun his car around and has now DNF'd in this session. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, your current race leader for this race is Vitor. Mini Turns currently sitting in P2 with Parker in P3. Out of completely nowhere, your race leader has just completely lost his car. He must have bended into the wall and just broken his tire off. And we can see a bunch of drivers now opting to come into the pits.
Yeah, so this is going to motivate...
Oh, a bit of collision there. Mini Turns breaks his front wing. So Vitor obviously slowed his car down massively to enter the pits and meet the speed limit, but Mini Turns completely didn't expect that. Goes straight into the back of Vitor. So with that, he will obviously have a much longer stop than Vitor to change his front wing. As we can see, the Haas team trying to put on the front wing as fast as possible. And Pasty now, who was on his debut season, all of a sudden has to get held up massively behind the Haas of Mini Turns. And only in a few, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we can see most of the medium runners have now come into the pits to switch off their medium tires. However, we can see Luke, on the other hand, still opting to stay out with his 7-lap old mediums.
Yeah, so it's a lot of motivation for especially the hard runners to try and get on the mediums, knowing that these tires can last quite a long time. It's going to be interesting to see if these people are going to decide to go to the end on these tires or if they would want to come in for a stop. My best guess would be that you would just try and hold on, because unless there's a safety car, the 20-second or 22-second, I believe, pit stop loss is not worth the drop off in tire performance. So most of these drivers will be looking to get to the end on their current set of tires. The hard runners obviously having the benefit of the longer lasting compound and the better tires towards the end. So this might be really good for Parker. If he didn't have his 3-second penalty, we could have been looking at a possibility for a podium, maybe a P2, or maybe even a win if he's quick enough to challenge Vitor.
We can see the person who has suffered massively throughout this race is Atmo, because after his pit stop and possibly getting held up massively, he is now currently sitting in P15. So at this current stage, ladies and gentlemen, it is currently lap 13 of 36. If you are just joining us, your current pole position setter CRF is currently sitting in P11. Vitor, out of nowhere, has been now promoted to P1 after Trems, your race leader, spun out. Luke in the Alfa Romeo is sitting in P2, and Parker with the Alpine sitting in P3. Mighty Chump and Luke both deciding not to have pitted, so Luke sitting on his 8-lap old mediums and the Mighty Chump with his 13-lap old hards. We'll have to see how those play into effect later on into this race. Why did MBMA pit? Thought you were his race engineer. I thought shouldn't you be telling him not to?
Yeah, Rigo, come on. You gotta do better. It's better than that as a race engineer, man. I expected more from you.
As the mighty chump manages to make a move past the naked champ. I'm not too sure what happened there. I think the naked champ probably went extremely wide there, which allowed the mighty chump to progress. But actually, you know, we pick on him a lot, but okay, no. Italiano is just vibing apparently.
Yeah.
But the mighty chump currently sitting in P4.
Provided on 13 lap old hards, I don't think he pitted, which is, you know what? That might be a solid call because those medium and hard runners towards the end of the race, they're going to be really struggling. So if he can get these far enough to put the softs on at the end, he might be looking at a solid points finish.
And once again, we've gotten the update from Race Control that the safety car is coming in this lap. So once again, we will be riding on board with your race leader, whose job it is to bunch up the rest of the pack and go at his best convenience. So we'll ride on board with Vitor and see when he decides to go. We can see Luke and Parker following very, very closely behind him. Hasn't decided to go just as yet, and now has decided to go. Catches Luke massively off guard, and Parker is completely on it, right behind the Alfa Romeo of Luke. As we look down the rest of the grid, we can see a bunch of cars now actually coming in a straight line relatively. Not many crazy attempts and moves going on at this current stage. Parker very, very closely following Luke. We've seen him make absolute lunges in the past before. Thinks about diving down the inside, thinks better up it. We can see MBMA managing to get past Tichy. And with that, it's been once again another very clean restart after the safety car. So complete opposite to what we've seen at China. We can see the naked champ very close behind the AlphaTauri of the mighty chump. Mighty chump obviously on those 14 lap old hards. We'll have to see if he makes it very difficult for him, and yes he does. Keeps his position so far. The naked champ trying to do a switchback does come into a bit of contact with the AlphaTauri ahead of him. They're now side by side going into this corner, and with that the naked champ does manage to make the move, and all of a sudden the mighty chump now coming into the battle with pointers. However, with the inside line, the mighty chump does manage to keep the position so far, as there's a big contact between both drivers, and the mighty chump gets spun out. And because of that, the Williams of pointers also has to compromise. I'm not too sure if he had any wing damage there, but he seems to have gotten away with it relatively unscathed. As now all of a sudden Mini Turns trying to make a move on Groen, who has managed to promote himself up into P5.
Yeah, that's unfortunate there for Mighty Chump. He was looking at a pretty solid strategy there, but with that he's probably going to try and come into the pits, strap on the mediums till the end of the race.
And going back up the grid, we can see Parker roughly 2 tenths behind Luke, draining all his battery. Luke does go defensive. Parker choosing to go around the outside into the next corner. Will he make the move stick? They both break super late. Parker trying to get the switchback done. He is still side by side with Luke. However, Luke does manage to cover off manages to cover off the Alpine. There was a bit of contact between the drivers, but going into the next corner, there's no move done as yet.
So yeah, that's really good defending there from Luke. He manages to hold off Parker for one more lap. As we can see, Mini Turns is pretty close behind Groen as well. Groen himself moving himself up into P5 there. That's decent from him in terms of recovery. He'll be looking to get after the top 4.
We can see CRF, your current pole position sitter for this race, has managed to bring himself back up into P9 after what was a horrendous start for him. So he obviously has to tuck his head down, just continue on with the rest of the race, and hopefully try to catch the drivers ahead. As we can see, Vitor has now managed to make a 2.1 second gap to P2. So Parker obviously chasing Luke. Luke obviously having no DRS in front of him. We'll see if he can make any sort of moves into this next long straight. My guess is probably...
Yeah, because it seems that Luke is struggling a bit on his tires, considering he dropped off from Vitor. DRS enabled, but we're not going to have it for this straight. Parker is going to have to try and get the move done with only ERS. He is burning as Luke goes defensive once again. Parker is going to be forced to go around the outside once again of Luke. Breaks later, but Luke's holds on to the inside line. Tries the switchback, but does not get it on this occasion. And great defending once again from Luke to manage to hold on to the position.
We can see Groen getting very interested in the Haas of Mini Turns. Mini Turns and Groen both sitting with a time penalty at this current stage. There is a yellow flag in Sector 1 between Abmo and the new Squid. And on this occasion, Groen can't seem to get past Mini Turns. And now Mini Turns once again gets another 3-second time penalty. So as this race progresses, we can definitely see a lot of the drivers struggling to keep the car clean and keeping it on track.
So yeah, we've had a couple penalties to note here. We've had Groen get a penalty as well. which is going to hurt him as he goes off, and MBMA gets past, and Joleri has retired.
And with that, Groen all of a sudden has no front wing. O'Leary has completely retired from this race, so out of completely nowhere, there seems to be a big incident involving these back runners. No safety car as of yet.
Yeah, that's really going to hurt Groen's chances to get past. I'm not too sure what happened there between him and Joleri, but Joleri obviously getting the short end of the stick, DNFs. That's going to promote all the drivers who are behind him.
And we have a full-fledged safety car.
Full safety car, the third one of the race.
So in the span of like 18 laps, we have had 3 safety cars, 1 VSC. Said says that Parker has too many penalties. He has to get past Luke ASAP. Absolutely. However, we can see Luke is definitely not making it easy for him. As now Groen comes into the pits, Luke comes into the pits, as well as Pasty. Nuve opting to switch onto the soft compounded tires, which I'm pretty sure won't take you to the end of the race.
No, definitely not. He's going to be trying to look at maybe another pit stop. These soft tires die off in maximum 10 laps. After that, you're looking at punctured territory. So, not the best tires to be on at this stage in the race, but we'll have to see how this pans out for him.
So, as Reaper is saying, he may be looking for another safety car to pit under, and with how drivers have been driving today, it seems like that may be a very big possibility.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully we'll see a bit more of a clear track, as these safety cars do tend to stop a lot of the progress for a lot of these drivers. Vitor was pulling a very decent gap and it looked to be set for his race, but with the disadvantage of the safety car, he's going to have people right behind him once again. Speaking of all of the medium run, as Naked Champ gets a 3-second time penalty under the safety car.
And Luke actually comes into the pits, so with that, Parker now promoted into P2, and the Naked Champ promoted into P3. So Luke, feeling like 13 laps on his mediums was too much, decides to finally come into the pits and switch on to his hard tire compounds. Probably the optimal time to pit, considering he won't lose a lot of positions, since a lot of the drivers behind him actually opting to coming to the pits as well.
This would have been the perfect time to pit for mediums, because this is the ideal pit window anyway for the mediums. But yeah, hard tires, the hand he's dealt with, he has to carry those to the end of the race. Hopefully he can make up a few good positions there and try and get these tires to the end of the race. The medium runners are going to be liking the safety car a lot, because this will definitely help them improve their lap, maintain their tires better towards the end of the race. Medium's obviously going to have a lot of wear, but with this they should be looking at comfortably making it towards the end of the race.
So lap 19 of 36 here at Mexico today. We've seen a bunch of lead changes throughout this entire race, a bunch of podium changes throughout this entire race too. Groen unfortunately had to drop down into P12 after the fantastic run he had. CRF managing to get himself back up into P7 after the horrendous race start he was having. MBMA now in P4, the Naked Champ in P3. Mini Turns seems to have suffered and gone into the pits as well, going into P9, with Pasty, his teammate, following right behind him. And there isn't a lot of drivers on the grid at this current moment with penalties, but the biggest one of them all being Parker with 9 seconds worth of penalties, so he definitely will most likely be losing his podium position unless he can pull a whole rabbit out of his hat and create a magical gap to the cars behind.
Yeah, 9 seconds of penalty is definitely not ideal to have, especially with so many laps left. Yeah, it's looking unlikely that he's going to be able to get the win or finish on the podium, but you never know at this track. You never know with Tier 3 what could happen. Hopefully he's able to pull the gap out, but it's going to be a job and a half to try and get that done.
Vitor must be very, very happy with the way he's sitting right now, with both podium finishers right behind him having penalties, and obviously with the pace Vitor's had so far, he's going to be looking to definitely catch Parker off guard.
Yeah, Vitor is going to be hoping that the cars behind can hold up the likes of MBMA and Luke and CRF, and even Groen for that matter, because the more that these cars fight behind him, the more he's able to pull a gap and be less threatened towards the end of the race, because let's be honest, Parker and the Naked Champ might not be much of a threat to him unless he makes a mistake off his own, but he's sitting pretty up there in P1. should be able to bring this home, provided there's no more safety cars or no more incidents.
And as the drivers begin to bunch up behind the safety car and we finish off Sector 2, so race control hasn't given us any updates as yet, so we will now be having another lap behind the safety car. Obviously this is once again great for these medium runners. Actually, never mind, safety car gets a very late call to come in. This usually comes at the end of Sector 2, however it is actually a very late call. We're right on board with Vitor once again. We can see Parker and the Naked Champ right behind him. Will Vitor go at the exact same position he did last time? And yes, he does. He finally decides to go. He does catch Parker slightly off guard. We can see the Naked Champ also caught off guard. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back racing once again. Green flags fly around the circuit. We can see a few moves getting done up and down the grid.
Groen is close behind Atmo. He's going to go side by side with him into turn 1, matter of fact. And with that straight line speed, he's able to get to position without DRS well before the braking zone. That's very impressive as Groen gets past and moves himself up into P11, one step closer to the points.
Obviously 15 laps left to go here at Mexico. It is now or never for Groen to make these overtakes as quickly as possible. He's going to need to have some sort of tunnel vision to make sure that he catches up to the rest of the grid. We can see a big train beginning to form between these drivers as CRF leads them. Both the Haas's, Mini Turns and Pasty following each other very closely. We'll see if there's any sort of team orders between these drivers at this current stage. I very much doubt it, since there aren't actual teammates. They are reserve drivers. So there's everything to fight for. This is essentially a fight for a full-time seat here in Tier 3.
Mini Turns now pretty close behind Pointers. Is he going to try and make the move down into the stadium section? He's going to have a lunge down the inside, hugs the inside curb, and Pointers with the better exit out of the corner manages to hold on to the position.
And at that current moment we also saw a battle between Luke and Tichy, so both cars up and down the grid constantly fighting with each other. We won't have DRS on this occasion, however ERS will still be completely available, as we can see Tichy catching up massively to the Alfa Romeo of Luke. It doesn't seem like it's going to be enough on this occasion. We can see Luke weaving back and forth trying to break the slipstream off the Aston Martin behind him. Actually, out of completely nowhere, CRF thinks about making a dive down the inside of the Aston Martin, however thinks better of it, decides to back off and realizing that he is most likely going to experience a ton of damage. Yeah, Reaper, we were saying that Noof was on the soft tire compounds, which definitely wouldn't be a smart decision since they're not going to go towards the end of the race. However, he may see something that we don't. Maybe expecting another safety car throughout this race, and most likely we'll be looking forward to pitting then.
Yeah, considering the amount of safety cars we've had so far, it might not be a bad shout, provided that he can get to positions. As you can see, the Naked Champ now closing in behind Parker. Gonna want to try and get past as soon as he can. Parker obviously having 6 seconds worth more of penalties. So he already has track position, but he needs to pull a bit of a gap to MBMA to maintain that track position. As we can see, Mini Turns and Pointers going side by side. Pointers obviously with the inside line, gonna have the lunge down the inside, and he does get past. And no, Mini Turns gets past as Pointers gets swirly, and that's gonna promote his teammate Pasty up, trying to get a move down the inside of the final corner. But now with the better exit as well, he's gonna be side by side already with the Williams, getting the slipstream of his teammate, trying to get past Pointers, already blinking sub 10% ERS he has, and Pasty is going to have the lunge down the inside as he tries to get past Pointers, defending for all his might there, but it is Pasty who comes out on top as we have a spinner, and it is MBMA.
And completely out of nowhere, Pointers has now dropped down massively, so with that, MBMA has completely spun out, and all of a sudden Groen tried to get nearly involved into this incident as well, and now actually, as a matter of fact, is getting involved in this incident, decides to go around the outside, giving him the inside line into the next corner, and with that, Groen has now promoted himself up into P9, and Pointers drops down into P10. That was great racing by both the Haas drivers to strategize, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't intentional, however, it was great racing from them to hold up the Williams of Pointers.
Yeah, now it seems that Pointers is going to start falling off a little bit. As we can see CRF and Tichy getting close, but not close enough. He might try and have a run, considering the fact that Tichy will not have DRS on this occasion, passing through the detection zone. Actually, he might, because he closed the gap up by 2/10 in the span of like a second maybe. So that will make it harder for CRF to try and get past on this occasion. Mini Turns setting the fastest lap of the race so far in a 1:19.6.
riding on board with CRF. He seems to be a bit too far back on this occasion. Doesn't seem like he's going to be making any sort of moves into the next corner. However, if he can line himself up very, very nicely, we may be looking forward to another run at P5 right now. However, with that corner exit, it doesn't seem like it's good enough on this occasion. Actually, going back up the grid, we can see Parker very, very close behind the Naked Champ.
Purple sector 1 as well, so you can tell he was deploying a bit of his battery on that as well, but not able to get past the Mercedes in front. Once again, stuck behind. The Vitor is having the time of his life out in front. 1.3 seconds clear, and the cars behind him have penalties. He lost a bit of time in this middle sector, as did Parker. Gets a little bit out of shape through the S's, but now with DRS it goes way off the track. But that's not a warning. I found this trick out when I was driving myself. If you're gonna go wide in that part of the track, then you might as well go really wide, because you don't get warnings there. I did that multiple times. Don't tell anybody, even though I said it on stream. But yeah, it's a neat little trick to know.
Well, I guess that's the helpfulness that we get for having a tier 1 driver inside as we ride on board with CRF. CRF, obviously, there's another yellow flag, and it is the Ferrari of Groen going into the pits. I'm not too sure if he spun out and went into the pits there. Not too sure why he would. He was on 7-lap old mediums, and once again it goes from bad to worse as CRF goes side by side with Tichy into this corner. Both drivers this move has been brewing for quite a while, and all of a sudden Mini Turn's getting very, very close behind CRF.
Yeah, it's going to give him a lot of motivation to try and go down the inside. CRF was having none of it, but not able to get the position on this occasion, as CRF cuts him off rather aggressively there and manages to hold on to P6. Mini Turn's obviously having his abundance of penalties in this race so far. He's going to be wanting to get past CRF as well, so he can try and pull that gap out to the cars behind, but unable to do so on this occasion.
It seems to have only gone from bad to worse for our championship leader here today, as MBMA picks up a 3-second time penalty too.
Yeah, Groen not having the time of his life out there with that unfortunate pit stop. Not quite sure what happened there, but he switched on to his used hard compound. If you remember, I believe he came in at the start on the first safety car, which did come out on lap 5. So yeah, used hards to the end, as we can see Tichy going down the inside of Luke, gets the position done, gets the move done well before the braking zone, as Luke nearly runs into the back of him there. Tichy up into P4, but Luke will be wanting to follow close behind to capitalize on Tichy's penalty. CRF now following as well. There's a bit of a train beginning to form here, as CRF might actually have the motivation to go down the inside. Not enough ERS on this occasion, does not manage to find the position, but with this bit of a train forming, I wonder what kind of strategies we're going to see. Maybe another pit stop this late into the race. I doubt it, but you know, for drivers such as like maybe Abmo or something, it's probably go big or go home, you know.
Looking at the top of the grid, we can see that the Mercedes and the Alpine are now massively closer together to Vitor on this occasion. So with 10 laps left to go, this is exactly what Vitor would have not wanted, that the fact that Parker would be feeding off of the Naked Champ's DRS and slipstream and catching him in front. We can see Pasty now getting a 3-second time penalty, and CRF on this occasion very, very close behind the Alfa Romeo of Luke, almost a 10th behind him. He will have DRS into this corner, however CRF's light is blinking. He may not have enough ERS to make a move on this occasion, and by the looks of it he does not. Mini Turns on the other hand very close behind CRF, decides not to make a move either into this next corner.
Yeah, ERS recovery is a big problem at a track like Mexico. A lot of fast corners, not enough low-speed corners to really recover that ERS. There's mainly just a couple on this track, but with the long straight you expend a lot of it and you don't even realize it. So ERS management at this track being one of the key elements for a driver to try and get himself up positions and make those overtakes.
And after spectating those midfield battles, let's move up to the top of the grid. So the Naked Champ all of a sudden was roughly 4 tenths closer to Vitor on this occasion. is a bit too, has lost a bit of time to him. As you can see, Parker once again going extremely wide there, does manage to avoid getting a time penalty. And CRF all of a sudden trying to make a move on Luke completely out of nowhere, dives down the inside but massively outbreaks himself, which allows Luke to maybe fight this position back. They are side by side through this corner. CRF still sitting in P5, and with that, Luke has massively spun out, and that promotes mini turns and Pasty up a position.
Yeah, that was not good from CRF. Goes off the track to overtake and then spins out to Luke. That is not what you want to see from these drivers. Luke is not going to be very happy with that, and we possibly may even be looking at another stewards report, as now even MBMA gets past Luke and drops Luke out of the points. Oh, but like we can...
We can see Parker now very, very close behind the Naked Champ. 4/10 back on this occasion. We saw that these drivers were fighting hand in hand together. Parker goes massively off the track. Parker has been going off the track left, right, and center. Someone needs to teach this man about track limits, because this is just not okay. We can see once again he's very, very close behind the Naked Champ on this occasion. We'll see if he goes wide once again. Decides not to actually on this occasion.
Yeah, manages to stay within the track limits, but he does have a decent run towards the Naked Champ. Not going to be enough on this occasion, as we have another yellow flag, and I believe that is for one of the Haas cars, and it is for Pasty. Pasty has spun in the middle sector, and that is going to allow Abmo to get past, as Luke has retired. Luke has DNF'd in the middle sector.
We have another safety car.
A fourth safety car of the race. Now, what is this going to do for strategy?
You can see Vitor actually massively slowed down there to get behind the safety car.
Yeah, did not want to spend a lap in front of it. Few drivers into the pits. We have Pasty, Pointers, and BMA, respectively, all into the pits. This is going to give Groen a good chance once again, maybe to get a couple positions, but yeah, we have a fourth safety car of the race here on lap 29 of 36.
7 laps to go, and still your top 3 are Vitor, the Naked Champ, and Parker. Obviously, whoever came into the pits will be switching on to the soft tire compound, so you can see Pasty, Pointers, and MBMA all having the same ideas. With 7 laps to go, softs will most definitely last you towards the end.
Yeah, they definitely should. I mean, it's a no-brainer at this point. 7 laps, softs, going to give you a hell of an advantage, and that's exactly what Groen is doing. The cars in front, though, are not going to have so much fun in the pit stops, because, for example, if Vitor here stops, he's going to lose so many track positions that it might just be worth it to stay out. A bit unlucky with the timing of the safety car there, I guess.
And someone who this is definitely not going to help is going to be Parker. Obviously, Parker sitting with 12 seconds worth of penalties. A safety car this late into the race, he most likely will not be able to create a large enough gap to the drivers behind, and will most likely drop down massively. Obviously, the Naked Champ and Tichy suffering from the same issue. Oh, there's contact between Parker and the Naked Champ there.
Yeah, Parker just runs into the back of the Naked Champ there. Hopefully he did not give himself wing damage there. That could have been pretty dangerous.
And your race leader, Vitor, and actually the top 3 all deciding to come into the pits and switch onto the soft tire compounds, and that promotes Tichy in the Aston Martin into P1.
And Parker with a 5-second penalty speeding into the pit lane.
So some of the medium runners deciding to